Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment below on the video we're about to watch. Get your Canadian federal politics right here. This committee investigation hearing is fresh off the grill. Michael Cooper, Blaine Calkins are trying to figure out what Mark Carney's connection is to the PRC, to the CCP, to China. Is he selling out Canadians? These witnesses make it sound like that is a definite possibility. We don't get very many cooperating witnesses in committees. Let's take advantage of this, jump right in. Michael Cooper's going to kick it off. Giddy up, cowboy. Let's go. Like, share, subscribe. Check this out.
Oh, yeah.
Witnesses, I'm going to direct my questions to Mr. Burton regarding the endless delay around the implementation of the Foreign Influence Registry. As you noted, Mr. Burton, the Liberals promised that the Foreign Influence Registry would be up and running 1 year after Bill C-70 received royal assent. 1 year was June of this year. June came and went. It wasn't up and running. The minister said then it would be up and running by September. September came and went. He then said December, and yet here we are almost in December, and no commissioner has been appointed. We have no registry, and I would note that under the legislation, the leaders of recognized parties in the House and the Senate must be consulted on the commissioner, and the appointment of the commissioner must be ratified in the House of Commons and the Senate. So there are a number of processes that haven't happened either. So given that, it would seem to me that we have no idea when the registry is going to be up and running. Is that fair?
Yes. The minister has said it would be coming by the end of this year in his most recent statement to parliamentary committee. The public safety people have been briefing us that it would be coming next spring. There's a suggestion that there are long delays in appointing the commissioner, the need for top secret security clearance and so on. But, when the government needed a fentanyl czar, they seem to be able to do an order in council and get that person in place pretty quick. So I'm puzzled as to why it takes so long to come up with a commissioner. I do see the commissioner as being key. If we can get a strong commissioner who can make these interpretations of the legislation, things like Senator Wu's concern about in association with, to get that clear what it means. What about people who are anticipating future benefits in the Chinese regime if they go along with a Chinese agenda when they're in a position of public trust in the civil service or parliament? What about secondary influence? In other words, a Canadian company that has extensive dealings with Chinese communist business networks that then sponsors a research institution. There are just a lot of questions there, and they really need a commissioner, in my view, a strong commissioner on site, fully qualified, to be able to sort them out. But what seems to be happening now is that public safety is trying to come up with regulations and interpretations which I believe will inhibit the potential independence of the commissioner in making this registry effective and actually getting names of people on the registry. That being said, from my talking to John Garneau, who was an advisor to the Australian Prime Minister when they put together their act, the simple existence of a registry seems to have a dampening effect on politicians who might be induced to get themselves in situations where they become beholden to China or another foreign power. So, we need to get this thing existing. And certainly the fact that we had an election after we had heard that from parliamentary, from a security committee, that there were a significant number of MPs and a slightly larger number of staffers who appeared to be under the influence of a foreign power. It's outrageous to me that the election happened when we didn't have any means to go into this in a fair way to ensure that Canadians are aware of people who may have not been entirely uninfluenced or unable to take the temptation of benefits from a foreign power or subject to a very sophisticated engagement by Chinese entities.
Well, thank you for that. It was 1st June. then it was September, then it was December. Now you're saying, according to public safety officials, it's spring, but who knows if it will be spring. The Liberals have a long track record of opposing the setting up a foreign influence registry. They campaigned against it. They amplified Beijing's disinformation against Kenny Chiu after he brought forward a private member's bill to establish such a registry. So it seems to me that after years of opposing a registry, the latest tactic from this government is to be one of obstruction through endless delay. Is that fair?
I mean, I think that there is concern probably at the center of government about prominent Canadians, possibly former senior officials, who might have to register because of ongoing relationships with the Chinese state. And I have a notion of people that I think might fall into that category. But so long as we don't have a registry, we can't say for sure. You know, it's suspicion, but we really need a registry that makes it clear. And let's bear in mind, I mean, nothing stops you from, say, that large number of people, prominent Canadians, that suggested we should release Meng Wanzhou forthwith from putting a statement in the newspaper to that effect. But, you know, when we found out that Jean Charest was the recipient of a retainer from the Huawei company at the time that he was involved in this activity, that's information that I would have liked to have known at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Burton. In October 2024, Brookfield Asset Management brokered a $256 million loan with the Chinese State Bank while the current Prime Minister was the chair of that company. And in light of what we know about China cultivating business ties with senior policymakers and business leaders, would you classify this as a classic example of elite capture?
I am concerned about this. It's similar to when we appointed Dominic Barton as the ambassador to China. That what if the prime ministership is a transitional job for Mr. Carney and that he'll return to business afterwards? The Chinese will naturally take into account what sort of policies he engaged in with regard to China while he was in that position. So I'm not suggesting that Mr. Carney is, consciously preparing for this, but the effect is the same. And so one is concerned about matters like this, his previous connections with the Chinese regime, and I mean his current policies, which emphasize promoting Canadian prosperity through seeking to expand Canadian exports into the Chinese market, is meaning that we aren't implementing the registry, we aren't dealing with Chinese espionage in Canada. We're not taking effective measures against agents of the Chinese regime who are involved in intimidation and harassment activities in our country, and so on. So the Chinese note that, and I think if you look at the impact of our not implementing the registry, from the Chinese government's point of view, I think they welcome it as similar to the Uyghur resolution, where the Prime Minister and the entire cabinet didn't vote in favor of it, that we don't really mean it, that we're not actually going to do it, that they'll continue to engage in their influence activities in Canada unhindered. The other country we have to look at is the United States, who have increasing doubts about the integrity of Canada as a country which is not infiltrated by China or other states. So, it runs into problems with whether we're going to continue in our role with the Five Eyes and the extent to which the United States feels they can share information with us and it won't end up being leaked to the PRC. So there are a lot of implications in what you're saying here. It's a very complicated question.
I understand. It's a very complicated position that Canada finds itself in right now. You intimated in your testimony, Mr. Burton, that the eagerness by which the Minister in Public Safety Canada and the government has gone about passing Bill C-70, and then subsequently that eagerness seems to be dissipating as time has gone by. We have no appointed commissioner. You have intimated that there seems to be some softening in the implementation and the approach that the government is going to take if they ever do eventually get around to implementing or appointing a commissioner. Do you think that is because of pressure from Beijing? I mean, the Taiwanese have warned us very much that this is exactly the way the PRC does its business. Do you think that this registry is being compromised as part of a larger influence campaign from China?
Whether it's active or passive is another question, but the recent statements by the leader of the Taiwan delegation here in Canada and Michael Kovrick's recent statements and others, I agree with them that we do have a problem here of evidently responding to Chinese agendas in Canada, and this is an ongoing process. In other words, the infiltration gets deeper and deeper as time goes on, and China is becoming more and more aggressive, and we're seeing concerns about Chinese infiltration into Canadian infrastructure. Lead story in the National Post today about the possibility of Chinese sabotage of our water supply by working with the filtration stations. But it's not just the water; it's the EVs. There are just all sorts of areas that suggest that a future conflict with China will not be about buildings blowing up in faraway countries, but it'll be about the APMs won't work anymore. The electricity will turn off, and that real Canadian citizens will suffer real consequences from China's cyber infiltration into our system, which appears to be an ongoing matter.
Thank you for those answers, Mr. Burton.
As a European, I am a European,
European.
actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh.
Irish citizen. Yeah, so there you
welcome,
go.
welcome.
Speaking as a European,
WTF.
How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows.
And as the most European of the non-European countries,
being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought
What
to
possible
avoid.
conflict would you have? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Come on, Fiona.
These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, you're spending more money on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.